Hello, everybody. So I am calling us to order at 6:07. So we are now here and roll call vote, everybody. Just announcing your presence.
Alan Pratt here.
Christine Latini.
Yes.
Dave Notaro here.
Gloria Parkinson here.
Jim Webster here.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I just get so stressed when you can't get it. It tells you it sent you something and it's not there, you know? Okay. First order of business is public comment. No, the minutes. Sorry. So I'm entertaining a motion for the minutes of March 12th and April 9th. So would anyone like to make a motion that we...
Are we going to do these individually?
Well, what's your preference?
Doing them both at the same time, and if everybody is okay with that, I'd make a motion that we accept the March and April 2025 minutes as published.
Right.
Second.
And see, oh, okay. All right, everyone. So these have been sent along with quite a lot of other materials. So let's start with the March, though, shall we? Yep. All right. Moment to review that, everyone. Do you need a minute? If you would. Oh, here comes Dean.
Okay.
Hang on, I was getting Dean in. Okay, so we're announcing that Dean will do his presence too. Hi, Dean.
Hello.
Could you
Sorry,
just announce your presence for the roll call vote?
Dean Briggs here. Aye.
Hi, we are looking at accepting together the minutes, the double minutes. So we have a motion and a second. So I'm giving everyone a minute to review if you need. If not, indicate you don't need a moment. You'd like to discuss March
I read them
1st.
this afternoon and I'm happy.
I have nothing to add on those.
Okay, on March. So again, we're doing these both together. So if there's nothing to change or review for March, let's go to April. Another minute to review.
That one's fine with me. I read it earlier.
Yeah, I have nothing on that.
Okay, nothing. Okay. Does anyone have anything on April?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
I see you all shaking your heads, and I can hear Dave. Ha ha ha. Dave will, do you have anything, Dave?
I do not.
Good. Okay, so both those minutes for March and April, there are no comments. So all those in favor of accepting them by roll call vote, please, everybody.
Dean, aye.
Christine, aye.
Dave, aye.
Alan, I.
Gloria, aye.
Jim, aye.
Okay, let's get those away there. All right, let's move on now to discussion document, quite a lot of which has been forwarded to you in piecemeal as stuff came in. So first of all, just, you know, the big news is the forest stewardship plan update has been finalized and has been submitted to the DCR. And the town will therefore be reimbursed. However, the good news for that is that the town, having worked with the town accountant and sent her all the appropriate paperwork, she is able to pay the forester now knowing that the reimbursement is coming rather than waiting for the DCR check to actually hit the town. So that's all been approved by the town accountant. And then we'll get to the Clinton High School project and a bit later in the agenda. All right. So adaptive land management. Okay, everyone. How are we going on equipment? Ah,
You're asking about equipment?
yes, starting, I'm looking for equipment updates.
Okay, well, equipment is updated and working with the one small exception that's not critical is when Alan and I replaced the cable on the DR brush cutter, we were able to adjust the brake on the left side, which are there for turning, but not the one on the right side because there's not enough slack in the cable, which means we need to jack that up, remove the wheel to get at that cable from inside the wheel. Not a big deal, just a matter of needing a half hour to get in there and do it, which I can probably do the next time I'm up there.
That's just a
That doesn't, that
redo of
doesn't
one
keep,
of the, yeah,
that
sorry.
doesn't, that doesn't keep us from using the machine. It just makes it easier to turn.
Okay,
If you need or want a hand, Jim, I can probably help you with that.
Yeah, well, let's see how our schedules look, and I'm gonna ask about something else in a little while here too, so.
okay, but can we say at this point that you two will confer and sort that out?
Yeah, okay, Alan and I will confer, and it's one of,
Okay,
that should be a half-hour job, but as we know, half-hour jobs sometimes turn into a trip to the hardware store and whatever else. So.
okay, all right, that's funny, that's pretty funny. Okay, so I have been checking, in the discussion document, see, we do have a porta potty up there. But it's not an ADA. I have been in consultation with Brian Farragut, and he has been trying to get one. The vendors didn't have one. They were awaiting getting another one. So I haven't seen it since, I don't think any of us have been up there since what,
Up
Saturday?
there yesterday, it wasn't there yesterday.
Okay,
Yeah.
Hey,
so
yeah,
it's
if
in,
I may, everybody,
yes, Dave.
sorry, not trying to talk over anybody, but I have not checked, but I did see Pleasant View, I think it is, go by
Yes.
yesterday with a porta potty on the back of their truck, which is odd because the porta potty's already been there. But I don't know if they swapped it out, so I guess it'd be worth
You know
checking.
what? I stand corrected. It was Monday that I was up there, so they probably have
Okay,
swapped it out. It
so
wasn't there
yeah,
on
so
Monday.
so you saw it, this went past your house, Dave?
Yeah, I think it was yesterday. It's a blur, but I'm
Okay.
pretty sure it was yesterday.
Okay, that's good. Then it looks like it has been delivered, but whoever gets up there next, just send me an email so I won't continue to bug Brian. All right? But
So
yeah, that,
it's basically the size of it's the size of the unit and the size of the door that
yes,
would indicate that, right?
yes, you can tell the
Yeah.
width. If you open the door, there's obviously very little space. If it's
Yeah.
not ADA, there's enough space for an individual to step in and then turn around. The ADA one has a much more space. It's wider and deeper so that someone with equipment could get in there.
I was actually there today, but I didn't, it was pretty spacious, but I'm not sure if it's what we're talking about or not.
I
If it was,
suspect they swapped it. If what Dave saw
yeah,
was probably them
yeah,
swapping it, and next
yeah,
one of us up there can look.
yeah. Okay, so whoever gets up just confirms. But if you're saying it was spacious, that's it,
Yeah,
Alan. The other ones are not spacious.
right.
Okay, so that's check on that one. Okay. I've explained what happened with the with the water being turned on the farmhouse. That's just an FYI for everybody. That there was a pipe leak and it got fixed. And I have to thank again Brian Farragut for very quickly getting a plumber up there, and the plumber also fixing it literally that day after he'd been summoned. So that was really, really good. So that was again more good stuff for the winterization. Okay, that's, any other thoughts on, we know that we, got the no mow signs up. Very attractive they look too, may I say?
They are
And I took,
indeed. Thank you, Christine.
yes, thank you. They really are very, very sweet. And they have now been circulated via Facebook and everything else that no mow is up there on Rauscher Farm. So, okay, now where are we up to? You know, the trails are started, right? General,
Yeah, can I comment on that?
yeah,
Yeah, I went up on Monday thinking that all the trails had to be mowed, and much to my pleasure and relief, I see that Ray mowed them all on Sunday. The only thing I didn't check, since I found out I didn't have to mow, and rather than go out and risk getting covered with ticks, I didn't only went to the barn and read the log, didn't look any further. We do need to check whichever of us is up there next mowing. We need to check the trail through the paddock back to toward the rail bed. I know that one often gets neglected, and I think especially when Ray just does it, 'cause it's not his turn. Even though I added that one a few years ago, it wasn't there originally, so it's that one gets bypassed sometimes. And the other one is the new one recreated up in Dead Pig Field when we had to clear around that dead tree. I haven't been up to check, so the next time somebody's mowing up there, which might well be me, we need to make sure that one's been mowed too.
That's just the trail around the sort of that island of shrubbery near where the tree came down, right?
Yeah,
You're
like
not,
that.
yeah, not
The
the
tree,
whole Dead Pig Field trail, but just
well,
that
yeah, well, that
little
whole
part.
trail needs to be mowed, but I'm assuming, I didn't go up to check, but I'm assuming
Oh,
Ray mowed the regular trail, I
okay.
guess.
Yeah,
But the
I
answer,
was, that's where I walked today and
okay,
on that side of the road,
yeah.
uphill from the barn. And I did walk around the whole Dead Pig
Was
trail
it,
and it was mowed. It is
okay.
mowed.
okay,
Yeah.
So
okay,
just check, whoever mows next, just check that little new loop, the little short section we had to add because that tree was down, because that wasn't historically there, and Ray wasn't there with us when we did that, so he may not know about that. Not a big deal. Don't make a special trip, but
and I just, for clarification, for we're talking about the paddock field next to Dave's, next
Yep.
to the beehives,
that's one of the two things we just talked about, yes.
right? Now we had talked to making sure that that was cut 2/3 away from Dave's property and 1/3.
It's always cut exactly on the far edge, right by the
Okay,
edge of the property line. That's the only place that trail goes through. It used
okay,
to sort of dogleg across, but then I rerouted it, so it just goes literally straight through, out the
okay,
back, and then over toward rejoining our other trails.
right, okay, great, thank you. All right, anything else on equipment, etc.? Okay, or shall we move on to, according to the agenda, land management, climate resiliency? Yeah,
Works for me.
okay. So, oh, okay. So as I just mentioned earlier, the forest stewardship plan has been signed off by the select board, submitted, etc., and reimbursable money will be paid from the state to the town. That all happened in April. I need to remind Ray to give us the final copy, i.e. the one with the signatures. So that's on my to-do list to have him, because the signatures, after the select board, he had to add signatures and then submit to the DCR. So we need to have the whole thing absolutely back again. So I'll follow up on that. More on that whole project is it was called a technical assistance amount of money. If you recall, there was the grant to actually do the plan. And then there was some money for technical assistance, which amounted, you could only do, I think, a maximum of 6 hours, which we've used. When I wrapped up with him, I did ask for any possible resources for going forward, which he then emailed me when we talked about it, and then he emailed me. The whole issue about those resources, though, however, is we will have to research them and also find out if they're still funded, given the current situation. So I don't know how they are funded. In other words, the Community Forest Stewardship Grant Program, I don't know how that will be funded in the next year, etc. So part of doing the research is what might be a good match is also to try and find out if they're going to be funded. I just wanted to just mention that before, because there's no certainty to any of this anymore. Okay? Is that okay? Move on. Did talk to him in that wrap-up session about herbicides, which is I think a couple of you had, mentioned this when you did your review of the draft. And yes, as we suspected, they can only be done by licensed. Even if we were to consider it, it can only happen from licensed applicators. And it so happens that the foresters, including I, seem to be the licensed applicators. So I'm just giving, again, FYI at this point, because there is the whole issue of, we're not using herbicides, but would we consider it under special circumstances? Maybe if over the summer we look at what might be considered a special circumstance, and if it was even feasible. Your thoughts?
I'm not sure, asking about the herbicides. Are they selective or do they wipe out everything in their spray pattern? Because I have seen videos before of, large scale applications where they're actually spraying, up high against entire entanglements of, shrubs and vines.
That's a yes and a no answer to what, according to him, is they are spraying, but they can be directed. Say, he particularly mentioned field edges
Yeah.
versus doing a whole spray of an entire field. In other words, where the invasives tends to be, as we know, is at field edges, which you guys are yanking out and cutting back and all of that. So again, these are indeed major considerations. So what he said is,
Can I just
yes.
say, field edges, we do mow those, we mow the trails around the field edges, then we try to mow in, because they're not as bad as they used to be, because we do mow them over from time to time over the season, or over at least every season we get through much of that. But a lot of the other places where we have invasive, it's mixed in with a lot of other stuff. I mean, we
Yeah,
have, as for
yeah.
instance, where we were working, 2 weeks ago, that area where we're going after all of that Japanese barberry, the barberry sort of mixed in around a lot of other stuff, which is
Yeah.
why I asked the question. If we went in and just sort of wholesale sprayed, are we doing,
Yeah, we
more harm
would.
than good? I don't know.
Yeah.
On the other
No,
hand,
yeah, sorry, go on now.
we're able to uproot that barberry, but and it is spreading quite a bit, but it does lend itself to uprooting. We proved the hard way. It can be done, but there is a fair amount of it and it's spreading out. But my only point is it is mixed in with other stuff that we don't want to kill off. That's the issue.
That is always, I'm mentioning it only because it was mentioned. I can't remember which of you mentioned possibly, looking into it again when you were reviewing the draft of the Forest Stewardship Plan. So, I mean, we can come back to that. Keep it in mind when we're working this summer as to, not usage, but where it is. Dave?
I would want to understand more about the regulatory guidance around that. For example, that barberry is, even if we want to spray it, it's a wet area. And I suspect that there are specific wetland restrictions around or use of herbicides that I'm not aware of, but it just seems like the kind of thing they do. I'm thinking more about
Yeah.
more isolated areas, stone walls that are like, covered where we're not going to be climbing up there, that sort of thing.
I think all these points are well taken. And as I say, the only reason I'm mentioning it is because it came up in the review sessions.
Yeah.
When you sent
Sudbury
in,
Valley's doing it, which, and there are experiments going on. Lincoln has an experiment going on trying to get rid of knotweed, which is a problem we fortunately don't seem to have very much of. But yeah, it's it's, you know, if SVT is spraying, you know, I kind of want to think about it. Because, you know, they're pretty cautious.
And the other thing we do know about spraying is there's no point in doing it to loosestrife because it'll just it makes the problem worse. That's all the research we did. So that's why we're doing the beetles. So I leave it with you, and we can always revisit, you know, as more thoughts come up. But
Did Dave
right
have
now,
a comment? You mentioned Dave. I just wondered if Dave, if you'd had a comment.
I did not have a comment. I mean, I have probably the same concerns you guys have.
yeah,
You know, I think the direction we're heading, being overly cautious, is a good thing, and I'll leave it at that.
Just a final comment, which is that, as folks know, one of the approaches is not spraying. It's to cut things at the appropriate time of year, like Asian bittersweet, and then to paint the herbicide on the stump and then cover it and wrap it with something. So you basically get zero spread from that.
right,
So that's something with certain, where it's feasible to do that, that's something to think about also.
yeah,
And I believe that application also requires a license as well, so
yeah,
that's where we get into
yeah.
And that's the issue, because
The
to me, that
finesse.
would be the way would have to apply it if we didn't want to
Yeah.
risk other things, but then we're not licensed to do it. So now we're back, you know, gone full circle. I don't know.
Well, the reason for bringing it up now, and you know, I think these are excellent comments, everyone, and I really do agree that the idea of cutting back and dabbing and covering where there is no chance of, you know, inappropriately destroying other things. Looking for other grant sources is, you know, is one of the ways that might be something to look into, and, you know, pick a small area and do a pilot project and see what that means. But
You know, I'm thinking of bittersweet. We see the huge vines that get around the trees,
yeah,
but it's also quite heavy around the field edges, some fields more than others. And it's much smaller, like woody stems as you growing up amidst the grass. And we mow it down and it keeps coming back. That keeps it under control until it gets to the edges and starts climbing the trees. I did sit through a session a few years ago at one of the New England Land Conference sessions, and it was showing God, it used to be the Wildflower Society, they've now changed the name, whatever they are, but they had volunteers going across a field, literally wiping those stems with, like, wearing a glove with wiping it with herbicide to kill it, which to me would be a way to control that. But again, we're right back to the same issue. We're not licensed to do that, but we wouldn't want to wholesale spray those fields just to get the bad stuff and kill the good stuff too.
yeah.
So I don't know what the solution is there.
It
On the
might
other
be,
hand, on the
yeah,
other hand, mowing the fields does keep it down. It doesn't get rid of it, but it keeps it
yeah.
back.
It'd be great if we could find someone who is doing you know, the one of Dean's suggestion, which is, you know, cutting it back and then putting the stuff on and then sort of bagging it. It's what we're doing in our house with bindweed. So if we could find, you know, someone who's doing that and ask and talk to them about it, it doesn't take away the whole idea that you have to have a licensed person, but then that would be separate. If we decided to do something on a certain area, we would look for money to pay for a licensed applicator, would be my suggestion, the way to go, because we can't do it.
The thing that I saw some years ago that I just mentioned was one of these things where it's like a group of volunteers all moving across the field, sort of side by side, maybe 5 feet apart, doing this. There might have been a licensed applicator on scene supervising or something, but most of the work was being done by a group of volunteers. But again, the issue is, if you had a licensed person, could it be done with volunteers? But then comes the issue of, we
Right.
need a large group of volunteers to be out there under supervision, doing fairly
It's
fussy, laborious
it,
stem by
it's
stem work, you know?
as I said, you know, just over the course of this growing season, just with that in mind, maybe look at what other areas where this would be beneficial, which would be areas not embedded in with other stuff, probably. Anyway, we'll come back and revisit it. We'll see if we can find someone who is doing it. we're not proposing it at the moment. And then we'd have to see if there were areas where it was beneficial and would do minimal harm, how would we implement it? Does that make sense, everyone, for now, as far as we can go with it? Yes? Okay, shall I move on?
Can I just ask, I'm not quite sure where we fit into the agenda here, but as long as we're on the topic of this kind of stuff, could I ask for a feeling about having a chainsaw party maybe next week or so, depending on who's available? The idea being to go into the same area we're working in a week ago Saturday and go after a lot of those younger white pines, the ones that are only, you know, up to a few inches in diameter that we could cut down ourselves to start thinning out that hillside, which is part of the forestry management plan. And also we could start girdling some of those trees. Dave and I went through there beforehand. We put yellow flags around a couple of trees, just as examples of the kinds of trees that sort of fit the guidance in the forestry plan. I'm thinking if we were available for, you know, those of us who have chainsaws, and Alan, if you want to come with a hatchet and whatever and do some girdling or whatever, we could start going after that hillside, which looks to me like the best place to start because there's a lot of hardwood there that is being crowded out above by the white pine that's growing up.
Okay, so how about send out a message for scheduling?
Okay, I'll send it. I'll send it on an email
good to me.
blast to. Excuse me, Dave.
I'm sorry, I just said, sounds good to me.
Okay, well, I'll send an email around and see if we can pick a day that looks good and hope it's not raining that day.
You're looking at next week, did you say?
Yeah, theoretically, it doesn't have to be next week, but
Because I'm away from Friday
I,
and through Memorial Day. I put something out to people, but I'll just put out a reminder.
well, let me maybe get something early next week. I've got to look at my own calendar right now, and then because always the weather. But if we can
Yeah.
get it before you're gone, that would be a good thing.
So
I'm
you're
leaving
leaving
this
23rd,
Friday.
Pete?
Friday.
23rd?
No, I'm leaving the 16th.
Oh, the
This Friday.
16th.
Oh,
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
this
leaving the
Friday.
16th.
Well,
and
that's the
I
day
will
after tomorrow.
yeah,
back.
that's not
Yes,
going to work.
exactly right. Yep. And
I
I
thought you meant the following Friday. Huh? And you're
No.
back on Memorial Day, so you're gone for 2 weeks then. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Well,
well,
let's try for early June. I'd just like to get it done before the real hot weather, sets in and makes it really, onerous to work out there. So why don't we see if there's something maybe the first week of June?
how's that sound to you guys who do the chainsaw parties?
Good to me. Sounds
Sounds
good.
good.
The first week of June is June the 2nd.
Yeah, I'm largely unavailable for that week for reasons I'll discuss with you after we shut the recording off.
Okay. Well, it doesn't need to be everybody, gang.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say. If Dave is available, Dave and I have chainsaws. We have an extra set of chaps for Alan and a helmet for Alan, so we can all work together up there. And the three of us could work. And then this is something we're going to have to do a number of times to start working on the forestry plan on that hill anyway.
Yeah.
So it's really at this point just not wanting to be doing it in the dead heat of summer, if it's like it has been the last couple of summers, which means the spring and the fall are certainly better than July and August. So we can have several of these, we hope.
So why don't you
Yeah,
start putting
love to
out email suggestions?
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Updates, because I do want to just remind those I did send out to you guys. Beetle Day is the 23rd. Dean, I know you're not here, right? But Alan, looks like you're available, and Jim
Yes.
and me, and it doesn't take. I know Dave, you've said you're not available. Unfortunately, the
Yeah,
Beatles cannot wait. They are very demanding after they've had their sleepover at 90 Haskell Ave the day before. So, but three of us we'll get through. It's not a big task.
Oh. In
It
the
should only
past, I've
take.
always just been duty photographer, but I can always actually apply beetles if it's, depending on how many
Yes.
there are. So
Well, we can swap duty photographer role around.
Yeah.
So, but they are arriving on Thursday,
Mhm.
the day before, the 22nd. Okay. So you guys are going to sort out various dates to look at that section that has been identified in the forest stewardship plan. Yeah, move on. Yes, happy to move on? Okay. Okay, so that's covering, okay, the whole, it includes the forest. Yeah, we did that. Okay. Haven't actually had a moment to contact National Grid yet about the electricity in the barn. So that's still on my to-do list. Historical research is everything has paused just because there was a lot happening between last meeting and this meeting. Okay. Pollinator Meadow nursery plant update. Well, thank you very much, Dean and Jim. Plants have now been purchased. And should be arriving when we're told they're arriving, usually
Well,
around some.
Yeah, we need to check because the ones being delivered from Vermont, I think I told them the last week of May. The other ones are available for pickup after there is a date like soon, mid-May, after which we can pick them up. So we need to check. I'll check to see when they're actually available for pickup. And then we can schedule a trip up there for you and me and
Yeah.
Alan, if you want to come along for the ride, if you're around or whatever, up to New Hampshire to get those, because that's like a hour and a half up, hour and a half back. Nice ride in the country.
We're talking about June.
Well,
We are
end of May, beginning of June, whatever.
Well, the end of May is Memorial Day, is the Beatles and all of that,
Okay,
and
whatever.
Steve McGrath. And
Whatever.
yeah,
I'm simply saying
so-
there is a date after which we can pick them up, and that date arrives sometime around the third week of May, I believe. I haven't
Okay,
checked their
well, we
site.
will again do scheduling for
Yeah.
pickup via email, okay? Because pickup. All right, is that okay? So that would be, so say we just talk about Alan, Jim, and me to schedule that, to see if, and Alan, if you're not good, it's fine. Jim and I can do it. It's,
Yeah,
you don't need to be a gargantuan heavyweight to lift these plants into the
It's
back
really
of
just
the.
right.
really just
Okay.
need one of us could do it. Just need the truck, and I have to clean
Right.
out the back of the truck and pick up some plants. Not a big deal. I'm just saying if you want to come along for the ride, fine. But if not, it's
So, okay, so Jim and I'll schedule it and tell you when we're going,
Sounds good.
okay? There's no pressure to to lift these tiny little plants into the back of the truck.
we did have a nice stop at the New Hampshire highways, whatever it is, for a sandwich on the way
Oh,
back.
it's
So
very
that's,
good. That was very good, yes.
that's right.
And
Highly
the plants,
recommend it.
the plants are in Warner, right? Warner, New Hampshire?
Somewhere,
Technically-
yeah, it's up northwest of Concord by, 10,
Yeah.
12 miles,
I
whatever that town is.
lived up in that area for a couple of years, a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know of that nursery, but I think it's in Warner, and
Yeah, it's only a few miles off of the highway, although the first time we went, went right instead of left and did the long way around down every bumpy dirt road you can name. Found if you went left, they actually have paved roads to get there, so it's live and learn.
Yeah, we did. Then we found the shortcut on the way back.
Good.
Okay, so the pollinate, so that's going to be scheduled for pickup. Beatles, well, I've just told you, the Beatles just told you they're coming. So, okay, so, there's no update on the path to Clamshell Pond. We talked about that at the last meeting, and the only comment comes from the, let me just find it. Where am I? From the Conservation Commission, who agreed with our recommendations that are minuted in our April minutes. So we're pausing, and then we'll pick up on that in another investigations, other than David Cowell, who said he would look at the location of the viewing platform. He'd take a look at it when he's doing the wetlands review. So that's the only update, okay? So onwards with that one. Okay. Okay, then we get to the fun of thing, all right? Which is volunteer and scientist opportunities. Okay, this is the Clinton High School. As I say, this in my notes I sent you prior to this meeting, this is in the very early stages. The background is that there's a dialogue starting as to whether the Clinton High School would be a location for a native plant pollinator garden site. All right. The most important thing is it would be their project, not ours. I'm sure we would, but the goal would be for Rauscher Farm to be able to say, you know, we're partnering and helping out with this. I have no idea how it's going, what the details are until I hear next week from a meeting. But so far, so I met with Brenda DeSessa. Brenda I have known for quite some time, and Brenda is a high school STEM teacher. So she's a science teacher person. And so we met and she, you know, told me that there's absolutely no field trips going out of the high school because of budgetary constraints. And we all know how difficult that is. We have not been able to implement any projects with with any of the schools because of the cost of field trips, etc. So I mentioned, well, how about a project that is in the school itself? So she was excited about that. She thought it was good. She made the connections. She contacted first, I think she contacted the superintendent, who then passed it on to the high school principal, who then in turn brought in the head of the science department, who now in turn has brought in the science teacher, who was actually already going to teach a horticultural class at the high school. The considerations for the principal, it had to be in a safe location. Now, in the meantime, I had already contacted Professor Rob Gagier, who, yes, was immediately replied and said, yes, he'd act as an advisor on an as-needed basis. I also got in touch with, as Brenda said, all of the property, the grounds and everything for the schools comes under the purview of the facilities director, our friend Brian Farragher. So I contacted Brian and we did a drive around for me to understand his considerations, of which, you know, he has some, and it was a great drive around because he could also point out exactly what happened on virtually every blade of grass around the high school, and as well as the playing fields, and there's also a recreation area for the younger ones. Of course, you know, the middle school is out of bounds right now, right? Because it's all going to be rebuilt. It's going to be moved and rebuilt. So we're only looking at the property that is under the high school. And so Brian pointed out literally all the corners where kids would go out and, you know, have some recreation, or there'll be some warm-ups, some practices for sports, which, you know, again, I would never have known about, you know. So Brian was great and he'd show me every single bit, you know, that gets used. One of his major considerations is bees. Okay, so apparently every time there's a bee scene at the high school, he gets the call and he has to go and deal with the bee or bees. And so the idea of planting a pollinator garden right next to a doorway is not a good idea, because Brian would be up there incessantly every time somebody saw.
We're talking about honeybees and bumblebees as opposed to wasp and yellow jackets. I mean, this is.
Well, every time there's according to Brian, anytime someone says we have a bee problem, he has to go. I mean, he doesn't, you know, it could be any type of the above what you've just described.
Yeah. Okay.
But the point, and it's understandable because, you know, think about it, anaphylactic shock, right?
Yeah.
because, some kids are allergic to bees. Some faculty might be allergic to bees, right? So there can be no encouragement of bees near doorways or really near very close to where there is foot traffic or sports warm-up traffic or whatever. But Brian is happy and content with a potential site. So across the road from the building, there are the sports facilities, right? The big ones. So if you have your back to the high school and you look to the right across the road, you've got the
Yep.
baseball stuff, right?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So, but behind the baseball, like
okay,
behind, Brian's happy with that.
okay. So just basically the guy in left field we have to worry about then, right?
Correct. Correct. And now this is also important because the high school principal, Scott, right? His function was to make sure that safety considerations for everyone, right? School faculty, etc. And so I have had a phone call with Scott. Oh, wait a minute. With Scott and Sam Rhodes, the head of science. We've already had that phone call. And Scott, the principal, has cleared that potential site as okay, right? As safe, right? So this is why we're into the next round of conversation, of dialogue, which will include me meeting with Sam Rhodes and Jake Vilhoit. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, the other science teacher, the one that's doing the horticultural course. So I am scheduled to meet with them either on Monday or Wednesday around 2:20 after school is out, where we go and look at that site, right? Now, at the same time, I have mentioned water. I've sent you what I sent, most recent thing I've sent them with all the attachments. So I would need to talk about access to water. I do not know. I mentioned in the phone call, I didn't know if the refreshments,
There has to be water at the field house, but that's a long way from where this
that's what I'm
would go.
thinking.
Yes.
So, but that would mean, on a practical level, that would mean a water barrel on wheels.
Hey,
Well-
Flo, I need to drop off.
Okay, thank you, bye.
Sorry.
All
Bye,
right.
Take care,
everybody.
Dave.
Bye,
Have a good
Dave.
evening.
Yeah.
Bye.
So that's the sort of stuff I'm going to talk about. The most important part is, though, to ascertain that they want to do it. They're not under the illusion that we're going to do it for them.
Okay.
So with that in mind, because the other thing that Scott, the principal, said, well, for a lesson that's 50 minutes long, you have to it could be 10 minutes to get there and 10 minutes to get back. So you're talking, so who knows? I
We're
also,
They'd have to have instruction in things like the safe use of a shovel and only closed-toe shoes. I mean, there's a bunch of instructional stuff that we assume kids have no prior knowledge of.
we would act as a resource. You're quite correct on this, Dean. We would need, the reason I sent all those visuals to them is to try and show them there's a process and there's this, that, and the other, right? But you are correct. We would need to generate some sort of how-to manual, which would have the information that would be one of the categories, and also so the other question I don't know is, would the facilities department or the DPW actually volunteer to prepare the site? In other words, lift the sod, right? So yeah, I thought about this. So anyway, who knows? It's a dialogue. It just happened that the time was right. And it's a dialogue that obviously would not go into operation if it was, until not this academic year coming, it's 12 months away. at least. Okay, so thoughts. That's where it is at the moment. A site visit next week. At which point they may all just throw up their hands and say, this is not going to work. You know,
I'm
The one
impressed,
thing-
Gloria. You've gotten
Yes.
farther than we have to date.
right? The thing I'm not sure about is I don't know if there are, quote, any clubs. And I'm wondering about the whole robotics program that they've done for years and years and years. I don't,
Like an after-school
yeah,
project. you mean,
I
yeah.
believe that is after school.
Hmm.
So,
Do you know if there are other gardens at the school, the vegetable gardens, for example?
no, this is why I believe that the science teacher, I'll call him Jake, I think he's introduced this horticultural class that he's going to teach. Because when you go there, there's nothing there. There's just grass,
Yeah.
right? There's no anything else there at the moment
Okay.
around the building that I can see.
Yeah,
So
decades ago, there used to be a greenhouse. We're going back to when I was a wee child going to school there. There was a greenhouse in the back that they would teach in 5th grade. They would teach the plants biology, and that carried on for many, many years. But it's been a long time since there's been a functional greenhouse at that location.
That's a shame, 'cause
Okay.
that sounds like something that would be good to have.
It was
This
great
is all-
fun.
yeah. Where was it located? Behind the middle school or the high school?
If you're looking at the middle school, on the right-hand side, it's the faculty parking lot. On the far
Yeah.
side of the right-hand side of the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just around the corner from that right-hand side, it was in the back along that section,
Basically behind the middle school then.
behind the middle school.
Yeah.
Like a very brief walk from a doorway to a greenhouse that was right
Yeah.
outside the door.
Well, it may be that I thank you for mentioning that, because I will mention that. Say I know there was something historic, blah, 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 you know, because it may be a conversation that starts with a small, and I've said, you can start small with this, expand, but it may be something that it could grow into something that does then include the middle school, because 2 years hence, the middle school will have been rebuilt elsewhere and we'll know what space might be there again, possibly for a phoenix-like rising of a greenhouse. So, but that is very helpful information. So thank you for that, Christine. So I'll see if, but again, I think if I can come back to the robotics thing for a moment, I would think this project is more in that category, with, and presumably the robotics was also based on class time, right? But I don't believe that it was the only time devoted to the robotics thing. I think there were other times allocated for it, but I'm not sure. I will ask. I'm there to learn from them too, right?
I do believe that the robotics isn't the first Gale Force, what's the full name?
I think it was called
US first, the robotics, most of that is extracurricular. I don't know that there's classroom time devoted to it, but if they're having a horticulture class, they might introduce these concepts in the class and then form the club to actually implement it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, thank you for that. I think that's something I will definitely suggest based on the robotics experience.
And it's something too that it may require extracurricular and even part of the summer school program, or incorporate some aspect, because those plants might need to be watered and so forth in the summertime.
Yeah.
In which case, if you're dependent on student help, there would have to be some sort of extracurricular club involved with that.
Yes, and then what I don't know in those circumstances with the extracurricular clubs, there would presume, I'm guessing, I don't know, but I will ask again, information gathering, that there is a faculty member who is paid. And again, knowing how tight the budget is, we'll see. I mean, even if it's just the start of a conversation for this year and continues, that's, we'll see. Anything else that you can think of that I should inquire about or explore with them next week?
If they're going to implement pollinator garden, would there also need to be similar fencing to what was done at Rauscher Farm?
I would think so.
So that might be an infrastructure consideration. Because I can't imagine the deer aren't traveling
there.
around that area at night as well.
They must be there already, just waiting to pick up all the remains of, the popcorn and the
Besides, there's been
snack shack.
bears on Route 70 in years past too. Maybe there's bears.
Yeah,
Maybe we need a
right.
bear fence.
Right. I mean, if they're really, truly, hot to trot on it now, it may involve some sort of fundraiser on their behalf to cover, yes, A, the plants, B, the fencing. And if the town is not going to really, they still need, as Dean says, you do need some shovels and forks. And so anyway, who knows? That's it. And thank you, Dean. This is further than we have got in the last 12 years. So, and it's not about us per se. It's about, if you recall, which I'm sure you remember every single word of the grant that we wrote to try and get funding for all of our habitats. One of the things that we have said is that Rauscher Farm is an educational resource. In other words, we're up there doing it, and that becomes a resource for other people doing it. And in this case, talking about the pollinator, nursery garden on Rauscher Farm. So, all right, is that it? Shall I move on with that? Yeah. So it's a watch this space thing. Okay. We did that. So I think most of you saw the Facebook stuff that I posted on Sunday, the day after we did our volunteer day, right? And I have since, Bridget and I have since talked, and we're going to be putting out a lot of more visuals of Rauscher Farm. Not necessarily always in the flyer format, but sometimes a whole just keeping up photographs that we stick all over the place before the public. So with that in mind, when I because you have to pace all these things if you put everything up all at once, it's like it's gone. But it's gone anyway. I am proposing that I will introduce the most wonderful plant we have on Rauscher Farm, right? Skunk cabbage. Now, skunk cabbage is a very fascinating plant. And I need to put it up soon because basically it's the first thing that comes up.
I'm
Right?
sorry, I'm not clear, but we have skunk cabbage in Rauscher
Oh,
Farm.
we
So
do. I've got lots of photos. I
So
have
what are you
lots of.
proposing to do with it? I sort of lost the train.
I have a wonderful set of photographs of skunk cabbage. For some reason, I took a great delight in it over a couple of years. And so I have skunk cabbage up the wazoo in my gallery.
Photos of it coming up through the snow? That's
They will
always
come,
kind of
they
interesting.
will
I'm
come
sorry,
up.
I'm completely lost. I know we have skunk cabbage. What are you proposing to do with it or about it? I've lost
Well,
that.
okay. Well, I'm sorry. I missed that part out. The explanation.
Okay.
Okay. So the explanation is that from now on, I will be posting a picture or two about Rauscher Farm every few weeks, not just waiting for events. Okay. So the photographs that I took on Saturday and then posted on Sunday, where start on that. And I keep monitoring what responses these things get, right? So I'm just letting you know that there'll be more visuals about Rauscher Farm going up from now on, because that's what works. Just like the newsletter isn't really a newsletter, it's basically 2 or 3 images, with a legend, a caption underneath, because that's what we need, something really, or here's the flyer, 1 line, here's a couple, 2 lines to say, hi, everybody, this event is happening. And then just picture caption, bye. Right. So it's taking all of that sort of stuff and just pinging pictures. Okay. So that's what Christina and I are working on, and updating the brochure and everything else as well.
Have we
Which
published a photo of the signage on the barn lately? I think that's very attractive, and I think that alone might be a draw for people, just for folks to see all that stuff.
Excellent idea, Dean. Excellent idea. And we have lots of pictures of that. We even have pictures of people putting it up. So there could be 2 pictures that say volunteer. Oh, lovely picture of the barn, right? So, okay, I like that. Barn pics.
And speaking of signs, I'm not giving a work assignment to Christine. I'm just throwing something out here. When we start
Brace yourself.
when we start working on that section of forest, we do have in the barn a couple of extra of the state signs saying this is a blah blah forest. We have one right before you go in there. We should put one up over there, at least where we're working. But I think it might be helpful to have a sign just explaining to people that we're not just willy-nilly destroying the forest. This is part of our active forest management plan
Yeah, no,
to
that's a good point.
thin white pines and open up the overstory for the hardwoods or something.
This whole educative process is really very, very
Because
important.
otherwise we'll have, hikers or dog walkers coming through and say, oh my God, somebody's chopping down the forest or, destroying the
Yeah.
trees or whatever.
And it is, I know I appeared to be doing nothing on volunteer day other than buzzing around, but I was taking a lot of pictures, but I was also thinking, my gosh, there's a lot of people up here
Yeah, and
coming and
also I have to
going.
say, I'm about to move a camera just over the winter. I had one on the fence next to the farmhouse, looking onto the path that goes across the pasture, off towards the rail bed, that main trail. And I've retrieved the SD cards and been emptying them over the last couple of days. It's like a nonstop parade across there with dog walkers, people walkers, bird watchers, just single people going out for a stroll in the morning, in the evening, groups of people going across. It's like downtown Rauscher Farm there. So just to be advised, we have tons of activity.
And this is it. I mean, there's people coming, people don't know Rauscher Farm, blah, blah, blah. I mean, even, people who've lived here, uh, you know, all their lives, or people who've moved in a dozen years ago still, I didn't know it was
Yeah.
here. So
And also just
it's,
adding, it is still timeshare because at night I'm also getting on that same camera, because I am primarily looking for the wildlife. We are getting deer and possums, little rabbit I see a lot over there, coyotes. So all the usual critters are coming and going through there also. But in the evening hours. But that is and I'm about to take that camera down now because once the grass starts growing, the grass is just gonna, keep triggering it. But also I don't want to freak people out thinking that we're spying on people. I put it there basically to see what goes on in that field over aside from the human traffic, though it's also good to know where people go on Rauscher Farm and have a record of that just in case we want to document things in the future. So I'm certainly not going to post any pictures of people, but I do have them on file just to show that how much use there is.
yeah, well, I think this is really important, because I always remember when the property was first bought, a gent, I won't name him, saying, oh, well, okay, so now we've got it, but no one will go, no one will visit it or go there.
Well, and also it was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago when the first camera that we had, I had it, that area we're working in 2 weeks ago over on the west side, that trail that goes up along the west side of the property. I had a camera mounted there for most of a summer, and I was actually, we normally see the people come and go through the barn, through Clamshell Road, I mean, all that kind of stuff. There was like day and night, all kinds of people coming down from Wilson Street or maybe coming from the courthouse, wherever they're coming from, walking through with fishing rods, with baby strollers, just, with little toddlers.
Yeah.
But there was just a steady stream coming through there above and beyond what we normally see when we're out in the normal where we park our vehicles and by the barn. So there's a whole other traffic area back there.
I think this is a really important thing. We self-promotion. We really, really need to promote
Yeah.
because people just have no idea how much
Yeah.
it is used.
Yeah. And I have to say,
And
repositioning the wildlife cameras, I do try to put them where we're mostly getting wildlife and not people, but the wildlife use the same trails the people do too. So there's a matter of, sometimes I've got some in areas that I know the wildlife like to be because there's not a lot of people there. But there's also some that's good to know what goes on, timeshare with the rest of us, with us humans.
my other confession to all of this is I'm not exactly terribly proficient at Instagram, but Sean Kerrigan has offered to work with me on that because he seems to know how to do this. And unfortunately, I have, because there's two accounts, and now there's Glow in Nature and Rauscher Farm, right? And I've discovered that it should be easy to switch from one account to the other. It's not if you try and do it on a laptop. You can do it easy peasy on your phone, but it's not when you try to do it on the laptop. It doesn't have the little quick control that you need to do it, or whatever. So
Well,
having
let me
spent
just, you and I can talk offline. There is a way, I do it all the time with my cell phone, where you can control the cell phone like a small window on your laptop if you want to do things.
right, no, yeah, we'll talk offline.
Yeah.
This is a different problem, love. It's a slightly
All right.
different problem
All
because, but what it means is this is a problem that Christine is perfecting for me, which
Okay.
is I need to make sure anything I'm putting on Instagram, I have access to the visual from my cell phone, because then it's way, way easier. Rather than, because normally all of my images are coming via my laptop. Anyway, we don't need to talk about everybody's time now. This is mind-boggling, cross-eyed, but it's these little things that you find that because people like Samsung and iPhone expect everyone to live on their phones. They don't expect you to be flip-flopping backwards and forwards, with a desktop or laptop, whatever.
And some of us old timers, I mean, I've lived with a typewriter since I was, 15 years old, and that's how I interface with the planet. I mean, without a real keyboard, I find it really hard.
Yes, well, it's to be continued. We should move
Yeah.
on. We're taking up everybody's time with
Yeah.
the difficulties of which can be all sorted out. So I'm just giving you the heads up that Christine and I are extremely actively, we're busily doing things which we will keep bringing before you, okay, in terms of promotional visuals and approaches and all of that. So and the one other thing I just need to say, which is really probably for Christine at this point, the Nature as Imagination Part 2, that cold, wet weather in the morning kept them all away, right? Even though the sun was shining in the afternoon, only 2 people turned up, and then half an hour later, 2 more. So Steve is great. He's available. We're going to reschedule it for May 24th. I've already sent the message out to all of the registrants. I have a group message to them saying we're going to do it on the 24th, 2 to 5, and we're also going to do it by Zoom if the weather's not good. So they'll get some of Steve, and if we do it by Zoom, they can share some of their photos already taken. Again, this whole program has been a pilot, and I think I'm really, really excited about how potentially successful it's been. The tricky part is always the weather if you're going to do something on Rauscher Farm. So now that I've learned that, what I think I should have done is not have a single event photography on Rauscher Farm, but do the one in the library, then let them all go forth in their own time and then come back and do the exhibit.
Yeah, and one other thing,
Because of the weather.
actually, that last weekend, there's really not many flowers out yet, and being the rain, there were no bees out. On another week or two later, when there's lots of flowers and various things
Yeah.
out there, then there's all kinds of bees and wildlife and little tiny hoverflies and all. So if people want to go out and take macro pictures of insects, there's a lot more to look at, like 2 weeks from now than there was 2 weeks ago, you know?
Yeah, yeah. The tricky part with May is because it can be still partially winter, you know. And the other thing is, unfortunately, the funding for that, for Steve McGrath, was coming from Freedom's Way, Hidden Treasures, and that program had to be done in May. And, you know, if you knock out Memorial Day weekend,
Mhm.
you know, for an event versus coming in your own time, it's all a learning curve. And being a slow learner, I was experimenting with that, but you're right. So we'll do a debrief and I will appreciate all of your feedback. I'll do some questions, possibly, you know, for the next meeting or the one after, do a debrief and get your feedback on that too. So with that in mind, I've lost the agenda gone again. Where am I on the agenda? Okay.
Well, you've done volunteer citizen scientist opportunities, then there's
Yes, that was,
new
oh, that's it.
business, new
That's
business
the school.
programs.
Yeah.
You and your camera, you just talked about.
The one other thing I want to say about no permissions received, not keep leaving the programs in every week just to keep reminding us. Also in the discussion document, we mentioned this last month, next year's NATO as Imagination 2026 being possibly based on sound. And in the discussion document, lo and behold, I get an email, and he has since replied, since I wrote the discussion document for you. So there is a gentleman who lives in Clinton who has a sound and meditation business, and he reached out to Rauscher Farm, you know, info at Rauscher Farm, which came to me saying, you know, he was interested in, you know, partnering up and doing whatever it is he does on doing a Rauscher Farm. And I explained, well, that's probably not quite going to work right now because it would be like his business on Rauscher Farm. You know what I mean? So I don't know. But so I explained the whole thing. Anyway, and then so, but how about he and I still meet in Coffee Lands and brains, and, you know, connect, network, whatever. And so he's now replied and says yes. So we're going to have a coffee land. And in the reply, he said, no, I think I'd like to volunteer. And I'm thinking, oh, good. But he doesn't know what his plans will be for next year yet. But I'm thinking, oh, good. So, you know, another thing to explore, right? Having just said we might explore sound stuff, I suddenly get something that says, I'm a sound thing. So we'll see. So I'll report back on that after, you know, I'll send you the link to his business, okay? Now that I've mentioned it, I will send you the link to his sounds and meditation business, okay? As healing, right? So I'll whiz that over to you. All right. So finally moving along, date of our next meeting, 11th of June. Dean, are you back from wherever after?
Let me take a look.
You just mentioned earlier you were NA for the beginning of June.
You said June 5th?
11th.
11th, okay. I'll be here for for our meeting on the 11th, yes.
Okay. Because I know people want to go away and all the rest. And if anyone else knows right now, you're just NA. I'm just checking if we have a quorum at this stage.
My calendar looks good for that day, for that
Okay.
evening at the moment, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I know things can crop up, but okay. So far we'll leave it at the 11th. And now I am ready to entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:17 PM.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And seconded.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? There being none,
No.
vote by roll call to adjourn the meeting. And
Dean, aye.
Christine,
Gloria, Christina, Gloria, yes,
Jim, I.
yes. And
Alan,
Alan, yeah,
yes.
okay. Approved. Okay. Okay, so right now I am going to say the meeting is over. I am going to stop the record button. Okay. Ah, where are you? Ah, there you go. Go somewhere else, don't you?